What's up, friends on the internet? All right, what is polyester made from? Plastic, oil, petroleum, good. So, we will watch a video next week, sorry guys, in which you guys will learn, I already know this, how they take plastic bottles like this and use them to make polyester, which is used in clothing, just like that you have on. Patagonia is a company, you may have heard of Patagonia. They have like more expensive kind of outdoor stuff. I want to say most all of their polyester is recycled. And then China does a ton of polyester recycling and manufacturing. Although they've stopped taking plastic bottles, from what I understand, the last year or so from the U.S. for whatever reason anyway. And so we've got a conundrum there to get rid of plastic, but they're still using it for polyester. Imagine wearing this around and it feeling warm. It just doesn't seem right. But it happens. Now, you know what happens to plastic when it gets hot? It melts. So you guys wearing polyester, y'all be careful when you're next to the fireplace, just FYI. All right, so on page 436, we've got some conundrums here. Which is better, paper or plastic cups? Or let's say paper or styrofoam cups for the environment. Which is better? Styrofoam's better? Paper's better? Why is paper better, Jordan?
It breaks down easy.
Well, one would think that it would break down and decompose much more quickly. Yes. But in your book here, on 437, there is an argument, wastewater generation and disposal, paper or plastic. And I'm just going to read through some of this, and you guys think about which one do you think's worse. This also goes along with the argument, like for those of you who go to the grocery store or work at the grocery store, which is worse for the environment? The plastic bags that you get or paper bags that you... Ain't you asked for paper bags still?
I think plastic bags in banned.
I think paper bags are like alcohol.
Yes, they do use the paper bags for a lot of alcohol stuff, Donovan. I don't know that that's exclusive, but they do use them. I am so old, I remember when we only had paper bags, and man, those jokers would rip and stuff would fall out.
I never remember paper bags.
Never, yeah. I mean, that's pretty, it's been pretty standard for a long time now, but I remember growing up, we were always paper.
I grew up in the gas station using paper bags.
Selling alcohol?
No.
Don't lie, Donovan.
I think so.
You grew up in the gas station selling alcohol in paper bags. We got it. You're too young for that. All right, so here's the argument. I'm going to kind of skip over to the right side of the page here. About twice as much energy and much more water is needed to make a paper cup. A paper cup of the same size as the styrofoam cup is substantially heavier, requiring more energy to transport it to the location where it will be used. Air emissions are different in the manufacturing of each cup, and it's difficult to say which is more harmful. Since more energy is needed to make and transfer the paper cup, it's reasonable to assume that using it generates more air pollution. A paper cup is normally used once or twice at most, while the polystyrene or styrofoam cup can be used many times, although I don't know many people who recycle their styrofoam cups, although maybe you could. Paper cups usually wouldn't last that long. There is concern from some scientists that the styrofoam cup might leach chemicals from the plastic into the coffee. I've often wondered that. You ever get like cheese dip from the local Mexican restaurant, Rachel? And that cheese dip, like it's hot in there. I wonder if it melts some of that plastic and gets in your food and then you consume it. Have y'all ever heated up one of those jokers, reheated it in the microwave, one of those little styrofoam foam trays? What happens? That joker melts, for sure. Yeah, you don't want to do that. So I don't know that I want to consume that plastic. Anyway, however, without proper disposal, the bleach used to make paper cups in a paper mill and small amounts of the associated product dioxins can cause harm to aquatic life when the water is discharged into rivers and streams. Did y'all know that most trees are not white on the inside? Are y'all aware of that? So how do we get white paper? White paper cups. They bleach the hound out of that joker. It takes a lot of bleach to get that paper white. And so there's a lot of chemicals involved in that process. That's one of the, I guess, arguments against recycling paper, that maybe it's not as bad for the environment just to throw it away and let it degrade in a landfill as it is to recycle it somewhere and use a bunch more chemicals to bleach all the stuff out. Now, I don't know that I buy that. We have a recycling plant in town over toward like the airport, if y'all know where that is, where they recycle paper. I used to carry paper over there. But they recycle paper into like a lot of times when you get a package in the mail, there's just like thick brown paper that they've got wrapped up around it. You know what I'm talking about? They recycle it into that. And we actually went through the plant one time and watched them to make that. Basically, it's going to be similar to the process where we recycle paper a week from Monday. And so basically you just chop all the stuff up, you make a slurry, you push it together and you dry it out. And
Wait, are you talking about the one that like comes in the towels and stuff? Like paper towels?
it's similar to that kind of paper. It's not quite as thick. Like when you get, it's just a thick brown paper that they wrap around stuff in like Amazon packages and stuff sometimes.
So basically they get it and make it into something that's doesn't matter.
Well, you've got to have some type of padding in those packages, and it's either that, I mean, like you put that around stuff, or they're going to use like bubble wrap, which is all plastic. So I would rather them use recycled paper,
I love bubble wrap.
and because they're not, and they're just leaving it like they're
on the inside of the package.
yeah, and they're just mixing it up, and it's just they leave it brown, so they're not coloring it. So in that way, that would be better. But anyway, as far as the styrofoam cup versus the paper cup, those are all good questions that we have to ask ourselves. I would say just because people in general are kind of lazy and a lot of people throw stuff out on the side of the road, I think paper's better, because if it's mostly paper, then it's more of it's going to degrade. I see plenty of people throw out styrofoam cups all the time, and because they're lazy and don't care about anybody but themselves. Not everyone, just the people that throw trash out on the side of the road. And then the same argument would be true with, I've heard that the plastic bags you get at the store, because they're so thin and so little amount of plastic there, that they may be better, in terms of like waste and stuff produced compared to even the recyclable bags. The problem is a lot of people throw those bags out on the side of the road. And I think most people who use reusable bags don't wind up throwing their bags out on the side of the road. Even if it breaks or something, they wind up getting rid of it. It's typically what happens. So those are just trade-offs we have to look at. I mean, in that way, you would think paper bags would be better, because at least if they throw out bags on the side of the road, will at least biodegrade much more quickly than a plastic bag. Okay? So these are environmental trade-offs we have to look at. We're going to finish that video today on the Chitaram River with all the pollutants, and we'll see how Jeremiah's jacket came all the way from Indonesia and killed all the fish in the river. Sorry, Jeremiah. What else? I guess we should do notes. All right, solid waste. Today we're going to talk about where our trash goes. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Number 34. Now, in the picture in the book here, come on, DeQuinte, don't fall asleep on us. We took a field trip to the landfill here in town 5 or 6 years ago, I think. Now, it was interesting, but I didn't go back because it wasn't that interesting. Basically, what you wind up with, so you have these little green cans outside your house that you put on the side of the road once a week, and somebody comes around and they pick up your trash. Where does it go? Yeah, it goes out to Coker. There's a landfill. And it's called a sanitary, basically you got two types of landfills you need to know. Sanitary landfill, which is lined, trash goes there, most of our normal trash. And then you have hazardous waste landfills that are specifically made for what? Hazardous waste. So things that are very harmful if they got in the environment, okay? And it's much more expensive, but it's protected and lined in a way that it's much less likely to get into like the groundwater or anywhere in the environment. We have one of the largest hazardous waste facilities in the United States down toward, the place is called Email. Does anybody know where that is? Not Email. Email. It's like E-M-E-L-L-E, I think. Down toward Livingston. You know what I'm talking about? And the reason that it's down there, one, it's out in the middle of nowhere. But two, that area down there, the geology, it's all like, once you get under the soil, which is pretty shallow, it's all chalk. And so chalk is pretty much impervious to like liquids flowing through, okay? And so they've got basically it's all lined in chalk, and then most of the hazardous waste is going to be in like big metal or concrete containers. And so if it were to leak out of that, they would see it, and then they could also clean it up, and it wouldn't seep into the groundwater. I'll be honest with y'all, I tried to get a field trip to that place one time, and they actually said that they would give us a tour through the hazardous waste facility, but somebody in the office didn't think that was a good idea to visit the hazardous waste plant or whatever. Anyway, I just throw ideas out there, see which ones stick. Number 34, solid waste is any discarded material that is not liquid or gas. It is generated in domestic, meaning home, industrial, business, and agricultural sectors. Okay? So any kind of solid material. Now, somebody last period thought solid waste meant like our poo, and that's not the case. Okay? We're going to get into wastewater treatment in a second. If you've ever seen sewage, once it gets all mixed together, is just a brown slurry. So usually by the time it gets to the plant, there's not a lot of floaters bouncing around. It's mostly all mixed in together, just in some very, very dirty water. Anyway, is that too graphic? So, number 35, solid waste is most often disposed of in landfills. Landfills can contaminate groundwater and release harmful gases. We're going to get into number 35, 67. Yeah, and number 37, we'll talk about specific requirements. Back in the day, there were not a lot of requirements for landfills, and so people would just dump. I remember where I grew up, there was like a holler outside of town, and people would basically just like where two hills came together, and that's where the landfill was. And it was unlined, and I'm sure when it rained, all kind of stuff washed down the creek. And somebody finally shut that down, and they figured out that that's not a good idea for the environment. But that's what people did back in the day in terms of getting rid of their waste, right? And so in the video that we watched yesterday, I think we mentioned this. They mentioned in the video that they didn't have like trash pickup. What would happen if we didn't have trash pickup? Where would your trash go? What would you do with it?
Well, I had trash pickup in Georgia. We just drove it to my stepdad. We worked at a dumpster, so we manually do it.
So you drove it somewhere. A lot of people would just throw it out on the side of the road somewhere. I mean, worse than it is now. And I feel like a lot of people would probably burn it in their backyard or something. I've seen people like growing up have burn barrels for their trash before, like we had trash growing up, or trash pickup growing up. So I know it's easy to think like, man, these people in Indonesia are really destroying the environment. Why are they throwing all this trash in the water? But we also have to think, if we were in the same circumstance, that where we live may not look much different. And for most of us, we would probably be like, hey, there's got to be a better way of getting rid of this and doing something with this material. But there would still be a lot of people who would be just like the people in the video who are willing to dump it on the side of the river. I mean, we have a ton of people right now who are willing to throw all their trash out on the side of the road. And so you don't have to drive far down the road over here by my house, and you'll see trash all up and down the side of it. I could spend a full-time job picking up trash up and down the side of the road where I live. It's crazy. Anyway, don't get me wound up. What do we say? Solid waste is most often disposed of in landfills, can contaminate groundwater, release harmful gases. What are some gases that are released from landfills? Methane is the big one. Now, let me go ahead and say this. So here's how. So when the trash leaves your house on a dump truck, goes to the landfill, dumps it. When we went there, they had two of these bulldozers that look like this. And the wheels, you can kind of see there, they've got these little, they're big, they're very heavy. They weigh like 30 or 40 tons. They're huge, maybe more than that. And they basically are compacting and kind of breaking down the trash where it's compacting it as much as they can and leveling it out. And then they also, like every day, so they're leveling this trash out, and they come over and they line it with a layer of clay. So remember, clay, it gets packed down. It's pretty impervious to stuff going through it. So they get trash come in, layer of clay. Trash come in, layer of clay. Now, over time, what do you think happens to that landfill as this breaks down? What?
Like flattens out.
What do you mean blends out?
Like flattens out. Like
Oh, flat. Yes, it does settle down. Is that what you mean? Yeah, so it's going to, like, as those Because most of the landfill is composed of what two things? Things you should write down, DeQuinte. What?
Trash and clay.
Trash. Plastic and paper. Yeah, so plastic and paper are the two main components that go into a landfill. And so over time, as that paper breaks down and that plastic gets compacted, then, yeah, there's a lot of settling. As that paper breaks down, what's released? Layla?
Methane.
Methane, yeah. So there's microorganisms that are eating and they're breaking that down. Methane is released. It's really a travesty over our landfill over in Northport. They have a huge, like, burn tower. All I can describe is a pipe that goes up in the air about 20 or 30 feet. And imagine that if, like, from here to the center of the courtyard, which is about 70, 80 feet away, you had this pipe that went up 20 feet. And where we're standing, like, we got that close to it, and it was hot. It was hard to stand there that close. They're burning that much methane. Now, methane, what can you do with it? You can use it for fuel. I mean, it's natural gas. What does it release when you burn it? Carbon dioxide. Why would you want to burn it and release all that heat and carbon dioxide instead of just releasing the methane?
Isn't the methane more harmful?
Methane is significantly more harmful as a greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide is. So my question was, hey guys, why don't y'all just collect the methane and sell it? Because that would make more sense. And so it was a little bit more complicated than that. Their excuse was, you've got to be able to collect the methane, compress it, get all the water and oxygen and other stuff out of it, and then have a way of transporting it or pipes that carry it somewhere else. And they didn't have that. Like, you know, if the city wants to do something that or invest in some type of methane collection, we'd be glad to do that. And so that's just something, I guess, that they would need help with. It's a privately run landfill, but they contract with the city. And I think our landfill, they said it's got enough space to last about 100 years at our current rate. So some cities are not quite as fortunate. Like in big cities like New York, they had an island where they were dumping all their, I can't think of the name of that island, where they were dumping all their trash up until the early 2000s. And then what happened? It got full. And then what did they do? No, they had to start shipping a lot of it off. I think they're burning a little bit, but they're shipping a lot. I had one video I used to show, and they were putting stuff on trains, shipping it all the way down to South Carolina from New York City just to get rid of their trash because, like, nobody in the Northeast wanted it. So you got to imagine you got 10 or 15 million people in that area. You don't have hardly anywhere for all that trash to go. That's a lot of trash to deal with.
What was South Carolina doing with those getting trash?
South Carolina's kind of like Alabama. It's got a lot of cheap land, and they like New Yorkers' money, so they took it and put it in a landfill. I think, and there was another thing in that video. I think what they were doing at the landfill, they were collecting the methane. There's a BMW plant nearby, and they were using it for energy at the BMW plant. So at least they were using some of that for something important. So anyway, a lot of times big cities are looking for places to discard and get rid of their trash. You know, we talked about environmental justice in places where people are poor and more willing to take things. For instance, in Parrish, Alabama, which is up by Jasper, about an hour north of here, it was either last summer or the summer before last, I think it was 2 summers ago, they had a number of train cars that were full of sewage sludge. So, like, basically, you know, I told you when the sewage, they compact all the poo and stuff that they can get out of it and compact it together. Excuse me. Every time I eat an oatmeal cookie, there's like a piece of oatmeal always gets stuck in the back. Tries to choke me to death. And I keep eating them. Anyway, so they had all of these like sewer cars or train cars filled with sewage, like just sitting on the edge of town in Parrish, which is a really small town up north of here. And like it was getting hot in the summertime and it was stinking up the whole town and nobody would get rid of it. And finally there was some kind of court injunction where they got them to take it somewhere else. But anyway, we got lots of waste. We got to do something with it. We got to figure out a better way to deal with it, to be honest. All right, number 36, electronic waste. Who likes electronics? You people, generation AA or whatever y'all are now. So e-waste is composed of discarded electronic devices like televisions, cell phones, and computers. So, in case you didn't know, inside your cell phone, inside your computer, inside your TV, there's a lot of electrical components like copper, silver, gold. Now, if you were to donate your phone just for the materials inside it, it would cost more to extract those materials than it would actually the stuff that you got out of it, okay? So that's why recycling electronics is not a big deal in the U.S. because labor is so expensive to get stuff out. It's not easy to extract those things. The same way with the old TVs, like the one on the wall over there. Show it. We got one of those old school big TVs. Those things have a ton. They've got like a lead cathode ray tube in there, and that joker's really bad for the environment. The bad part about electronics and waste is what do we like about electronics? Make life easier, and we always like the newest one, right? And so you're constantly, these aren't things that are meant to last. These are things that you're constantly replacing. And I'm going to show you a couple of clips from videos I've got next week. Hold on, Donovan. One, Australia, where they're sending a lot of their electronics off to some poor sub-Saharan African country. And you've got kids out there who are like 8 or 10 years old burning old school TVs like that in an open dump where it looks like you're burning a tire because of all the plastic, just to go out there later and pick through and try to get some of the copper wires out of it after the plastic's burned off. And then you've got some place in Colorado that says they're recycling electronics, and really they're just taking money and shipping it off to somewhere, I think in China, where they're basically doing the same thing, using some medieval cocktails to try to get some gold and silver and copper out of there that they can sell for like, I don't know, $8 a day or something. And these people are getting sick, and it's very unhealthy. And basically what we're doing is pawning off our electronics on poor countries, and they're trying to break them down to get money because they're poor. Stuff that we wouldn't do. So environmentally, I don't know if it's better just to throw them away. We would think you would want to recycle, because one day, like when we run low on all those materials, you don't want people, I can just imagine us like 500 years in the future digging through all the landfills, trying to get all the metal back out that we threw away. Can't you, Luke? It's a shame. We just recycle it now. Take care of it. Anyway, Jeremiah, you got something to say about that? You ever heard of that? You ever thought about where your electronics go when it's done?
Yes.
Did you know? No. You should have Googled it. Yeah. Donovan.
Is it like how in fire alarms they have like a component like uranium where you can actually use it as a source for like nuclear power in a way, sort of type of way?
There's uranium in fire alarms?
Well, not uranium.
I'm going to need you to send me that link.
I don't know, because have you watched Big Bang Theory?
Okay. Donovan, you send me a link to something that has some scientific information, and I'll review it and we'll talk about it, okay? Don't get all your scientific information off Big Bang Theory, guys, although it is fun to watch. All right, we got one more. Sanitary municipal landfills consist of 8. So when you're making, we've got 2 landfills in town. Have y'all been by the other one over here in Duncanville? You know what I'm talking about? Y'all ever go to Dreamland, the old one? No? You know what I'm talking about?
You mean behind the Coca-Cola plant?
Behind the everybody says behind the juvenile detention facility. Yeah, the Coca-Cola plant. There's that big hill. You can see it from Bear Creek Cutoff over here. If you go down past McDonald's and Bear Creek and like look over toward 82, you can see there's like a huge hump of dirt. Oatmeal's gonna kill me. Yeah, that's the landfill over here. That's not where our trash goes. They take like construction waste and stuff over there. According to the other landfill, this one always has like violations and stuff, and that's why I actually called them first about a field trip, and they wouldn't let us, but it's pure speculation. Anyway, so where was I going with that? Landfills. So if you wanted to start a landfill, you've got to line it properly, and so this is how it works. You basically got like a layer of clay, a layer of plastic, another layer of clay, another layer of plastic. Why are you lining it with clay and plastic? What? Yeah, they're not permeable. Why are you lining them though?
So that it can't leak through.
Yeah, it's going to rain on the landfill, right? So some water is going to leak through. So if you've got something that somebody's thrown away in there, like some paint cans or antifreeze, you don't want that soaking through, getting into the groundwater. So there's usually like these collection systems where they can test the water that's coming out of the landfill and make sure that it's not hazardous before it goes into the water supply, okay? So that's important to know. And then you can see there's the leachate collection system. That just means stuff that leaches out of the system or flows out of it. Usually when they're done, they cap it off with clay, like a heavy, thick clay layer, so that, and usually landfills, when they get full, they're pretty tall, and so most of that's going to run off. And then, like I said, methane collection. I think we could probably do a much better job with that, to be honest with you. Anyway, somebody wants to bring that up to the city council, feel free to do so. Any questions? All right.